I just want to show you an example of how our society sets an expectation of behavior. And if we don't follow this expectation, we get classified as being outside the norm and therefore a potential threat to society. Today, I'll focus on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, as you all know, is a social site for people in the business world. In some businesses, LinkedIn is mandatory. It is not an option. It is an area of society where, frankly, privacy is not allowed. LinkedIn has potential benefits to both the employers and the employees, primarily convenience and secondarily from crowdsourced data. Except that it is a double-edged choice because it is a major cause of the loss of privacy that exposes us to other dangers on the internet. I choose to resist this, but I'm an entrepreneur, so I don't have to be on LinkedIn. But many, especially those early in a career, cannot fight back because those you can push against can control your wallet. LinkedIn is a classic example of how society has implanted a particular behavior in modern life, and this is going to be the reality of the future, and not necessarily a good reality. Let's examine the perils of LinkedIn and see if there's a way out. Stay right there. The problem today is that some companies will take employment applications only through LinkedIn. Now, maybe this came from the desire of convenience. Employers don't want to go through the trouble of rifling through 100 applications. They could just specify the job and the LinkedIn applications show up. This could be quite a convenience too for job applicants since they don't have to worry about formatting a resume. Yeah, win for all? Well, big loss actually, because LinkedIn is an example of a social media platform that thrives on a real name and a real identity. In fact, because of the employment implications, having a LinkedIn account without a real name would be caught quickly and would be something that the applicant would have to explain. Now, this is a big deal. It's a big deal because LinkedIn is a social network. Yeah, it's for business, but it means anyone can look at anyone. And this is the main problem with the internet. Each one of us is forced to have an identity card that anyone can look up. And you can say that LinkedIn is one of these identity cards. It's not unusual to be looking for someone you know from the past, perhaps from college, and find them eventually on LinkedIn. And that could be the beginning of a new friend connection on some other social media. LinkedIn is a real name index. The problem is that it is basically a starting point for a doxing attack or stalking. Someone searching for you on the internet needs to find some real name identifiers to grab onto. Then from the job connection, you can get the address, the email, and then you can launch a full discovery of a person depending on what was placed on LinkedIn. If you're a casual user on LinkedIn, then perhaps there isn't as much data on you that can lead to other personal information. But if you rely on LinkedIn to enhance your employment opportunities, then you will squeeze in as much information on your LinkedIn to obviously make sure you look good to potential employers. This can also be visible to others though, and more information would be known about you by other parties. Perhaps more nefarious people like doctors, hackers, and stalkers, and personal enemies. This is the issue that every one of you will attempt to balance. You want to say a lot about yourselves because appearing good to the public is important. On the other hand, saying something too good will lead to other people challenging your claims on your record. To some, this is an advantage for the employer since the information about you is crowd verified. You will stick to the truth because it will be embarrassing if you did otherwise. Again, to make this clear, this is a social media that will pretty much lead you to say much about your life, and then it will force you to maintain this facade of constant promotion because otherwise you will look bad with employers. In other words, this is an example of a situation where society's expectations bring about conformity. The conformity relates to giving up privacy in return for personal promotion. You have to behave like a soldier in the workforce. follow the rules and behave as expected, or else you will lose out on opportunities. Fortunately for me, the last time I ever applied for a job was when I was in my 20s, so I don't particularly care what others have to think. I'm the one looking for employees, and I never had to care about what my LinkedIn account says. I have some minimal LinkedIn account I set up a few years back, but actually I forgot my login, so I can't even go to LinkedIn now. No interest in it, so I don't care. But LinkedIn is an example of a force that makes it difficult for young people to really disconnect their professional identity on the internet from their social activity. Let me tell you how it starts. From the time you're in grade school nowadays, you're given a Gmail account through Google's partnership with your school. This, of course, is associated with your real name. Then every action in your school requires the use of Google Docs and Google Drive and eventually Google Photos. You're basically then stuck with a permanent internet identity, and this is forced upon every young kid. This goes all the way to college. The leaders in these educational institutions, from elementary school to college, see absolutely no danger in plastering your real-life information on the internet, especially an internet that does not forgive nor forget, an internet that is permanent. So the continuation of this for every young person after schooling is LinkedIn. Now you're prepped for a system of using the internet always with a real identity, and to this there is no escape. As an older person with an established career and someone who's always been very aware of what goes into my social media, I'm not concerned for myself. But tied to the real identity that this society has forced us to glue to the internet, we have our other social media platforms where the real details of our life are in. Our social life, our relationships, our friends, our choices, our beliefs, our home address, our financial information, our legal battles. And this then becomes visible to all because there's a real identity platform that can be used to verify it is you. By the way, in case you didn't know, you submit your application to an employer, which obviously has a real name, and then this is used to do a social media search on you to find out all the details about what you really like. There are many verification services now providing data on you, including verifying your employment history and your social media activity. And smart employers always do this verification. Basically, it starts from identifying you from a site like LinkedIn or Facebook. This sets up the index to find you. Then all your data that can be found on the internet is then matched to that name. You could try deleting things from LinkedIn, but this data will have been sucked out and moved to social media aggregator sites like Intellius, Axiom, and Spokeo. So the risk isn't necessarily from LinkedIn itself, but typically LinkedIn will allow someone to connect their social media accounts to you using facial recognition on top of matching a real name. Putting out information on the internet always has a cost. The cost is that it is permanent and it is spread. So if you lie or maybe embellish the truth a little, you will be zucked. If you do something embarrassing in your life that is found in social media, it will be discovered. Now, this extends further. LinkedIn is also now a way to examine who's working where, and of course, this has potentially positive implications for the employee. Headhunters will scout you and look for you to switch jobs. However, switching jobs is also like a credit score. You do it too much and it looks really bad on your record. But the real hidden issues are the way corporate espionage happens through information on LinkedIn. Those in certain jobs become hacking targets, like network administrators. Looking for the people to target is part of OSINT, or open source intelligence, which is how hackers can research how to break into networks. LinkedIn also gives a picture about a company, like who works there and how many, and the quality of the workers. And the part that we don't acknowledge is that this information can be gleaned by third parties who may not have your interests or the interests of your employer at heart. For example, competitors use this to steal employees or even steal data. Expert doxers know that the best way to initiate an attack on someone is to start with a real name social media site like Facebook or LinkedIn. And because of the pressure to make yourself look good to the world, you fill up LinkedIn with more and more information, never less. So LinkedIn is an example of social media integrated into life of so many, in which forces those in a professional life to give up their privacy. And as long as you want to perform in society, there is no avenue for escape for many. Well, there is sort of an escape. Change from being an employee to being an entrepreneur, and you don't have to worry about what other people who are potential employer and peers will think. Then you can delete your LinkedIn account. Unfortunately, bearing our life in the open is being built as a standard of behavior. Hiding your life is going to be construed as a sign of sneakiness and untrustworthiness. This is what the internet has changed for us today. Society's expectations are that we must be open in our actions and behavior. We cannot hide anything. In a nutshell, it means that to survive in this new society, society demands that you cannot have privacy. Now let me tell you where this reality will begin to hurt. Some of you don't know how to separate your social life from your professional life. Some of you are extremely vocal in voicing opinions, particularly of political issues and social views. And some of you will wonder why your job search is really difficult, because you never actually think that some people may think differently than you, and your aggressive public behavior where you think you are free will prove to you over time that you are not really free. You will be judged. You will be judged by those who disagree. As many of you can see, I'm not actually quiet in my opinions. I'm on social media, stating my beliefs openly. But I'm not at risk of having my professional life interfere with my social media. In my case, my professional life is my social media, and I no longer have any business outside of this. Many of you haven't thought this through though. You match everything you say on social media through an identity that can be quickly found on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is an index to your real identity if you're one of those that work for someone else. The solution to getting some of your life back is to delete social media accounts with your real name and start new accounts with a new name. This way, your LinkedIn data, if you still have it, does not match your other social media accounts. I might also be more careful about photos you put on the internet, since you can be matched also by facial recognition, as I mentioned earlier. Maybe on LinkedIn you limit yourself to photos with glasses, for example, or something to confuse the facial recognition AI a little. Fortunately, unlike Facebook, you can delete your LinkedIn account and set up a new one quickly. If the need for employer visibility is no longer important, for example, if you become the boss or have such a long-term employment, then maybe it's time to remove the index to your identity. This, unfortunately, is not foolproof, as third parties capture the information from LinkedIn and move it to other social media aggregation platforms. But at least it makes it slightly harder to find you. If you're smart, you will start establishing different identities in social media platforms that do not use your real name. But as much separation from the ID card on the internet and what we do. Not everyone has to know everything about us. Not everyone has to know our thoughts. If you think this is all nonsense because you have nothing to hide, someday you will find that something will happen to you and you wish you could hide certain things. My company provides tools to counter the potential tracking of our activities on the internet. If more and more people use these tools, then we can blunt the effects of internet dangers. We have a VPN product, Bytes VPN, a metadata-free email, Brax Mail, and one of our new products is the Brax 2 Privacy Phone, which allows you to use the phone without an identity. This stops the tracking on the phone. These products are on my store on BraxMe. The link is in the description. I'm on the platform Odyssey.com. I'm now a top creator on there. In case I get the platform, please follow me there using the link in the description. I am also now on Rumble, so you can follow me there as well. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.